Hello, Sid, can you hear?
Yes, I can. Thanks.
Excellent. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Woodstock Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, Thursday, December 7th, 2023. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:35. And I'd like to start the roll call. Yeah. I'll start over here on the left side of the room. Dwight, would you like to start us off, please? Sure. Dwight Reynolds, Mark Blackmer, Joseph Adaletta, Ed Porter, Dean Gould, Jeffrey Marcotte, John Day, David Morse, Joe Palulik, Aaron Farbo.
Good logic.
Thank you, Sid. I think we have 8. We need one alternate. So. Term, starting in alphabetical order. Doug, Day, and Dwight. We win. Johnson, you're the new kid on the block. I'd like to see you tonight. Okay. Welcome to the commission. Thank you. That was just a pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and nation under God, indivisible, liberty. Chair's report. I'd like to congratulate everyone that's returning to the commission, as well as new members of the commission. Aaron Farbo is a new member, and John Day is the alternate member. Welcome to the commission. Hope it's enjoyable as it had. Well, maybe that's not right. Fulfilling has been interesting. So welcome, and we look forward to a lot of good work to be done amongst the commission. So thank you all. Plus or minus, I think there's 105 days left between now and spring. Couple of things about the winter solstice, which should be 12/21, one of my favorite days of the year because the days start getting longer again. We have a meeting scheduled that evening, and it appears that we're not going to be able to have that meeting because town hall is going to close at noontime that day, and effectively town hall will be closed. Because town hall is closed, we cannot have a meeting. Even though it's on the calendar for us to have a meeting, there's been some squabble back and forth and mix up somehow. Cannot have a meeting that night, so we'd like to move the that meeting to the 4th of January. So we have the continuation of the public hearing for Woodstock Sustainable Farms that night. So I, at this point, would like to have a motion from the floor to move the meeting to the 4th of January. We'll move. Second. Motion by Dean, second by motion by Dean Gould, second by Mark Blackmer, to move the public hearing to January 4th, 2023 for Woodstock Sustainable Farm. Is there any discussion? Joe?
Just the timing on that application. That was it.
7:45, that'd be good.
No, I'm sorry. How many days left on the application?
I'll let Julie handle that.
I don't handle the days.
Day was the 21st. So they had to give us a written extension request and they had that.
Okay.
So we're unfortunately having to use up days just to get them to the next meeting when they normally have it available for them to do, or you guys to review.
So we still have enough time, obviously, for the public hearing and then post the public hearing and then do it.
Did you receive that written request?
I have asked for it, but the 35th day is up until the 21st, so as long as I get it before then. It's not a problem.
Well, except it is a problem if you don't get it.
Well, I
We
will.
just-
sure look at it. And I specified that I needed a big number of days for the request.
Okay, but what happens if they don't get it?
Well, they I have spoken with them on the phone and they put it in writing, but they somehow forget to send it to me, then they'll run out. It's not a subdivision. Subdivisions would be automatically approved, the special permit is not gonna automatically approved.
Unless they run out of time.
The subdivisions get automatically approved if you don't act on the different allotted, but that doesn't happen for special permit.
I just wanted to put that on.
And further, the following week, which would be the 28th. Town hall will be closed at any time on the 28th as well. And allow us to have a meeting on the 28th. Either because of that, so that's why we're gonna move it to the 4th. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor? Any opposed? That's what passes, thank you. Gonna be a little chilly tonight, I encourage everybody to bring your brass monkey in. Anybody that doesn't know about a brass monkey, it's widely believed that a brass monkey is a brass tray used in naval ships during old time wars for the storage of cannonballs. They pile them up in a pyramid. The theory goes that the tray would contract in cold weather, causing the balls to fall off. So, if you have a brass monkey, you might want to bring it. Like to wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year. Looking forward to good things next year as well. So I think that concludes the chair's report. Brings us to citizen comments. Are there any comments from anyone actually?
Well, Sam, I'd like to wish you a Merry Christmas. Thanks, it's hard to see you.
Merry Christmas.
Till after.
Agenda item 4, meeting minutes from November 16th. What is the will of the commission?
Move to approve the minutes of November 16th meeting.
Motion by Joe Adelaide approved the meeting minutes from the 16th of November, seconded by David Morris. Is there any discussion?
I did have a comment, but I'm trying to find where.
After discussion, not comment.
Yeah, while she's looking, I know you really like Dollar General. I came by last night. What time did it close?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock? I went by the one in Ashford. It looked like it was closed. What is this? Keeper, it's in that card.
The limited close at 10. The extremely convenient for
Nothing else out in the valley until you get to Ashford.
the common saying around our household that I love it.
So my comment would be that, if you could spell my name correctly next time, that'd be nice. Also, On page 4, says Delia Pay clarified the Devon Point Farm never applied for a special permit to teach. No permit is granted, but operating wasn't to teach. With regard to having the learning venue. They discussed it, but they never actually applied, so therefore they weren't, they just chose not.
The context of that conversation was about the educational thing, because she had talked about,
It was also about wedding.
Yes, I did. Isn't that on there? Maybe that's a- Yeah.
What's that, Amy? Any further discussion or comments?
I just noticing that, on the public hearing for the, subdivision act, the Woodstock Inn, it says we closed the public hearing, but then we voted to approve it, but because they don't see that in the minutes.
that should be on the old business, the separate section.
Oh, okay.
You can't make a decision in the public hearing.
Well, I didn't know if it came after the public hearing.
In the future, you guys asked me to change the agenda, so I will. in the future.
Okay, yep, no, there it is. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Did we lose connection? That's good.
Any further discussion? Dick?
Nope, I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. That's so passes. Brings us to agenda item 5, new business. Plan conservation development update. I'll let you speak to this. Before I do, you need to. I'll let Julia speak.
So, as many of you know, you have to do a update to the POCD at minimum once every 10 years. And so that's rapidly approaching, and so you have to decide how you wanna do that. If you'd like NECOG and myself to help you with that, you'd have to make that decision, then NECOG and the town will have to negotiate. I believe that may exceed what the contract is to do. I'm not sure though, I'll get involved in the contract.
So that brings us to, brings me to what I was gonna start off with, Delia said, we need to make a decision on, if we wanna have NECOG do that, find out. What NECOG to possibly charge us to do that, so. We can do that now, or we can do it in January, but Delia's recommendation is the sooner the better, so she can get working on it, or somebody can get working on it, so.
So can we start it off by just requesting clarification from whoever writes contracts to see if that's included in the current contract?
Sure, I can add.
Oh, okay, I didn't know.
Yeah, can we add that, so then if it's not, we can start negotiations, right, figure out, right?
So we're just gonna effectively have Delia ask how much it costs. Look, Joe?
There are a lot of charts and graphs that have to be updated. Census and population, et cetera.
you know, that have to be updated. So we're gonna have to get somebody who has access to that information to get it in the new. Folder.
If you have me do it, or NECOG, then I would recommend that you guys have some public information meetings and do a survey, and then I do all the research and bring you the draft. So he would handle that, all that research map. NECOG has the GIS capability to make maps.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
You did say, Neil, that you would check to see what's included, if this is part of the contract.
And if it
I
isn't
don't know if
included,
it is.
I know, that's, I just want to clarify, whoever is the right person to clarify that.
John, I'm gonna check.
John, oh, John, you would have John fill check, okay, that's good. And if not, then I think, like we said, let's start working on an estimate for econ to take that. help.
that would include a survey of the existing farms too. I know there's quite a chart in here on the existing agricultural facilities.
Sure, we could update that, but I meant a survey of the public. We would draft questions and then we would do a survey of the public for their input,
Yeah,
and have some information meetings where we invite them to come in and have stuff.
all right.
Delia, do you know how it was updated last time? I know it was 10 years
Yes,
ago.
I worked with the town and I helped them write it.
Okay, so NECOG did help.
No, I worked with the town.
Oh, you worked for the town.
Before I worked with NECOG.
Okay. So NECOG wasn't involved with that.
A little bit, we had them do the build out analysis and to do the map.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Somebody want to make a motion, or we just want to have Delia get back to us? Just getting back to us. Perfect, thank you. Moving on to new business, item B. PA 3-142, an act concerning certain protections for youth and family child care homes. Delia dug this up, and this is something that we need to in our regulation, update our regulation. You need to do that.
The reason why I came across it, and there was a law passed for some reason, the first selectman has to sign something stating whether your zoning regulations are in compliance, or if you're working to bring them into compliance about daycares being allowed in homes without a special permit. And so, that part you're in compliance with, but it doesn't specify in your Massachusetts. So to make it clear, that could be added, but also we have some definitions and some other language that really doesn't provide enough information on childcare businesses. So I think that we should update your regulations. And the reason why I was concerned about it was, in October, I did speak with someone who wanted to open a daycare. They actually contacted with something they wanted to do with it. And so when I saw this law, because of how it's worded, I was concerned that maybe we're in compliance. But I did look into it with the town attorney, and he said that the special permit requirement it's not required that you allow them everywhere without a special permit. It's only in homes. And then what counts as a childcare home, I think is a little bit different from what we have in your regulations. Right now, we have it specified as I think it's a permitted use or maybe such permitted in the village district, which you don't actually have. That's the language in the zoning regulations for a zone that it's not been in. So it doesn't really apply to anywhere else. I'm just recommending that we get started on that to bring the regulations up to speed. speed.
Were you outlining something in this document that you sent?
I didn't do that underlines, that came from the state,
Okay,
so I didn't have time to draft anything yet. And also, I wanted to bring it to you before I sort of.
Any other questions, comments? Brings us to agenda item 6, old business and short-term rentals.
I'm just gonna working on that. For this, we can still have our discussion and so that we really finish the discussion on the new process that I'm recommending. But we will be do that more work. We may have a full agenda for January 4th, because we were going to have something on December 21st, and I just want to do it that way.
What's the will of the commission do? What we- Don't you remember you-
No, I,
Only got one eye. I
uh,
can't hear very well.
Might have been me waiting, but
go ahead.
yeah, I agree with Doug Porter. I think he's brought it up 2 or 3 times is regardless of what regulation that we come up with, I'm in favor of, having some kind of a penalty clause, added to it. And I think the one in Stonington had a pretty good penalty clause if they didn't comply.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else?
Well, clearly this is something I feel is important for us to pursue and continue the discussion with the drafts and regulations for short-term rental. The January meeting sounds, the January 4th meeting sounds like it's gonna be full, so I would expect to try and continue the discussion then, but if we have some points that we can give to Delia to allow her to work on draft of some regulations that would be helpful for her.
So how far along is the impetus come from where? Is it coming from citizens or is it coming from us? Where is the push for? I Googled this and I guess it's a topic of much concern in almost every community. And even we just don't have it.
My take is that it was initially brought up to our attention because of an issue like the area. And there was a fairly active public hearing about it. Citizens discussing the pros and cons of having more regulations about short-term rentals. We have some definitions in our regulations about a bed and breakfast. It's about the only short-term rental description we have. But my feeling is, as part of our planning function, because this is an issue that's arisen already and it's likely to continue to grow. I think it's a topic that is zoning commission has to prepare regulations to help address it. What will be I think a continued concern using our planning function, right? That zoning regulations.
So are we just getting started on this or?
The idea is pull together a number of regulations from neighboring towns in Connecticut for the commission to review and see if we want to cut and paste different clauses or topics from it. But I think since then, Delia has proposed a different process for developing the regulation. Opposed to you call it the quilt sort of method,
The Google quilt.
Google quilt method.
Instead of just people who've done, we should step back, figure out what we wanted to do. And what the process was. So, we had discussions and I probably did not send you guys all the discussions that I can do next week. But if we could take time to go through that process, identify what the problems are and stuff, then move on, and it can be a lot faster, make a lot more sense, create a new regulation that is piecing together from other towns. It's how we've always done amendments, takes a really long time, and sometimes the discussion doesn't seem to move forward very efficiently because your attendance fluctuates. Some people aren't there for a month or two and they don't. Step away from what other towns do and first figure out what problems you're looking for, what are you trying to accomplish. And then once we have that, we can look at maybe nothing like what maybe they're regulated with the people think. Have the process on the screen and I can write down the questions if you want to do that now.
You want to follow along on this, Jeff?
Whatever you wanna do.
Okay.
Spend a few minutes on it, that's perfectly fine with me, whatever, commission wants.
I mean, it would certainly help doing research. Not to know.
The different process could be that I could send you the questions and you all could send me back your comments and I can compile them together. And then we can discuss each of the questions once you have looked at everybody else's response on the question. Because it would take a long time for me to write what everybody's saying. We could do it that way.
I think that would be great, Gary, if you could identify the key issues that are other towns are trying to address, need, and you think that we should address. That would be great. I just want to give John a little bit of an historical perspective. You know, I organized my book, so I would be up to date with short-term rentals. And it started in January of last year when we had actually started probably earlier September of the prior year, but in January we had an application for a zoning permit for B&B, bed and breakfast, and then when they really weren't operating a bed and breakfast, it was like Airbnb. And then we realized we didn't have regulations that addressed them. And so then we had comments in June, we looked at other regulations in September, and then we had the meeting where a lot of people came out from the lake districts. But then we also had a lot of other issues that we had to do, so kind of went to put it back further. Does that sound reasonable as a historical perspective?
Thank you, Doug.
Yeah, so some of the points were, like Dealer was talking about, was trying to identify what issues we're having. So that way, when we go out and we look at some of the regulations of other towns, we can pick and choose what would best fit us, and if we have to create any of our own.
What were the issues that triggered this from like?
Some of the issues would probably be, in the lake districts, they're private. So, there's an issue there. The owner feels they have the right to have an Airbnb, it's their property. However, other people on the lake, because they bought property on a private lake district, they don't want people that really don't pay the taxes that don't live there to occupy the space and use the lake. The other issue is similar to Public Rock Road. From the minutes of November 16th. They're narrow dirt roads. They're tight, they're winding. So those were some of the things that were identified that I recall.
Noise was brought up too, wasn't it?
The issues of noise and concern.
Noise, yes, the sizes of septic systems, the amount of people in occupying space, the rules and regulations don't allow for parking on the roads. Seems to be a lot of cars. And this was all brought to us during the hearing.
My recollection was that there was one standout that rented their property to a bunch of unruly people over there. Stirred up the neighborhood, which I understand that property has been sold to somebody else, and somebody's living there full time now. It is an issue. So one person or one property that makes commotion in the neighborhood. And, getting to our attention somehow. So.
Well, I think it's also important that the fact that bed and breakfasts have to be identified, yet they're permitted in the community district, which not is community district. An Airbnb, at least in my personal view, is a different type of short-term rental than a bed and breakfast, as I discussed before. And even though the Lake District brought it to our attention, I think it was useful for us to take that input and know that there were probably other people with properties at Woodstock who may want to have additional income by renting out part of their house or something. And I think that behooves us under our planning map to be prepared for that. To help the zoning enforcement officer when somebody comes in, like we had, I've said in January, with an application to have an Airbnb, if we don't have any regulations to help the CEO identify what are the requirements for that application. I think a couple times we may have tried to squeeze it into a bed and breakfast definition, but I think the Airbnb and other short-term rentals that are discussed are not quite the same thing as a bed and breakfast. But okay, go ahead. Sure. Okay.
No,
Yes, just for the new members, so you can put down on your record, January 19th minutes, you might want to look up. That was the first, that was the bed and breakfast application, and then I think September 7th was the other meeting that we had a large group of people. Can I get that date right? And I just also want to clarify for the record, we did not have a hearing. We were just discussing it when the people, there was emails around the Lake District that they were going to have a hearing on this, and we were just in the discussion, because the hearing is a required formal process. We were just working on the regulations, and I think both of us were surprised when we came in that night and the audience was full, which was fine, and we did entertain their comments, which was great, helpful. So I think if you looked at the September 7th minutes, that'll give you a good sense of what was going on.
I remember what I wanted to say before, that the lake districts have their own set of rules and regulations, which would allow the lake districts to create certain regulations around how property should be used around the lake district. So I think they're also working on some language and updates to their lake district regulations. They can be more strict than the town regulations. They can't be any less restricted than town. Right, is that right?
Yeah, that if they are more strict, they have to enforce their own regulations. Like, town does not enforce deed restrictions for lake locations. So they would have to do that privately.
Another, excuse me,
yes, Joe.
another issue that came up too was, if, well, Verbo and Airbnb are corporations. And they are going around the country and actually buying property. And so one of the issues was, how is our zoning enforcement, who is our zoning enforcement officer supposed to contact if there's a problem? If it's a corporation headquartered in San Francisco, it's tough to enforce it. So that was another issue. If it's a corporation rather than a bed and breakfast where the landowner is right there.
Anyone else?
Well, I guess the question is whether or not you have the language in such a way to keep the corporation and let other people not have to fight so regularly. Yeah, that sounds hard to do.
Yeah, I'm not sure you can keep the corporations out, but it certainly have some control and inspection and safety concerns written into regulations for an entity looking to have or under an Airbnb corporation or both.
In a similar discussion that I once had with a team with property restaurant, can't prohibit the chain. So I would think you can't prohibit the corporation. If the issue is more about having a local management, you might be able to fire the something local
Contact
who
number.
could be available. There be a
I mentioned to say there are multiple LLCs and corporations that own property, which stock that is being rented, as we speak, so maybe that's an short-term rental club.
A lot of families for estate planning will have a trust. That could be a corporation. So that the family. I always tell you about just the RVO.
So I'll send you a survey online and you can put your comments in and then I'll compile commission members into a for the back page for so we can go through the process. Figure it out. What the problems are. Guys, you're running, then we can try to see them. I think that gives us a lot more guidance. Things that we're not, so then it can hold different. Probably. I mean, the people.
Did you have any comments?
Thank you. Not at this point. Kind of lost my connection and like to just also add the audio remotely is still horrible. I don't know if it's just me or whether we can ask the other Zoom attendees, Kathleen, Rainey, and Brian, what their experience is, but I think we need to get this looked into. I guess each time I log in from home, I'm hoping it's going to be better, but it unfortunately isn't.
What did you want to look into, Sid? Sorry.
Better audio.
I think better audio.
Audio.
And the other attendees on Zoom here, okay?
The audio is pretty poor.
I apologize.
Yeah, I can't understand a word you're saying.
Thank you, Brian.
I don't want, I think I had a conversation with one of our new members, Aaron, recently. If we're calling correctly, he's got some experience with, as a audio engineer or sound technician or something in that profession. If you want to take a stab at this.
Yeah, that's, not my field of expertise. Today. Not my forte.
Sorry to hear that. Thanks anyway.
Seeing as we're coming into budget season, maybe that's something that should be put onto the agenda. Budget for a better quality system for down here, especially if we're gonna continue with some, hybrid meetings. Right.
Is there any other discussion? Dealer's gonna send us a survey, we can all fill it out, and hopefully file what we'd like to accomplish with this and take it up again another time, so. Thank you, moving on to review of home occupation permit applications. I'm not aware of any, I didn't see any in the packet. Nor did I see any non-residential zoning permits. Which is agenda item 8. Moving to agenda item 9, our annual meeting. Item A is election of officers. At this point, I'd like to open up nomination for chair.
I nominate Jeffrey Markov for chair.
Is there a second? Second. David Morris nominates Jeffrey Markov, second by Joe Adaletta. Are there any other nominations for chair? Are there any other nominations for chair? Hearing none. Consider nomination for chair closed. I'll open up nomination for vice chair. I would like to nominate David Morris.
I'll second that.
Nomination for David Morris as vice chair by Jeffrey Markov, seconded by Mark Blackmer. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Hearing none, I'll consider the nomination closed for vice chair. And I'd like to open the nominations for secretary. I'd like to nominate Tim Young. Second by Joe Adaletta. Nominated by Tim Young, nominated by Jeffrey Markov, seconded by Joe Adaletta. Are there any other nominations for secretary? Or any other nominations for secretary? Are there any other nominations for secretary?
Tim's not here. Are we sure he's gonna take it?
It's not an option.
Hearing none, we'll consider nomination for secretary closed. We can do this individually, we can do it as a slate. I'd like to ask for motion to have an election of officers or vote on the officers.
I move that the slate as presented.
You have to close nominations?
So they did.
He did have to reach out. Missed it, sorry. Okay.
I'll second Mark's motion.
Motion by Mark Blackmer to vote on the complete slate, seconded by Joe Adaletta. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Did you get
Passes. Thank you, everyone. Yeah. Would like to say that I'm humbled by being the chair. It's not something that I lay awake at night thinking about, but I'm glad to be here and try to moderate the meeting, move it along and help the commission. So, again, I said to John earlier, I do enjoy the work of the commission. I enjoy working with all of you. I think over the past 4 years, and my time on the commission, I think we've done some good work together. I feel that we've done right by the town, and I look forward to continuing that. So, thank you all. The next agenda item is the meeting dates, which we did approve most of it in the last meeting, but I did say to Dealey and I discussed it, and I wanted to add the January meeting for 2025, so that in case we don't get to it in November, December next year, we have to have it on the calendar 30 days in advance. So we should be very well covered with it by adding the January 2nd date to the calendar. So need a motion to pass the calendar that was in the meeting packet, please. Move to approve the calendar. Motion by Dean Gould to approve the calendar we have in our hand. Or a second? Second by Lawrence Blackburn. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Sid. That's what passes. Thank you, everyone. Next item is the bylaw review. Not sure if anybody wanted to add or subtract anything to the bylaws or I'll open that up for discussion.
I make a motion that we accept the bylaws as presented for here.
Second. Second. Dean Anwar. Oh, Dean second.
Motion by Joe Adaletta, seconded by Dean Gould.
Motion by Joe Adaletta, seconded by Dean Gould to accept the current bylaws as they are. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Actual passes. It appears our annual legal training is scheduled for Thursday, March 7th, 2024.
I'll let you.
I was glad to see that note from Rick Roberts about, I guess, the statutes are changing to allow 4 years between training. Annually.
I gave you a copy of the statute about training, so you guys can have the whole thing. New guys have a year to get your training. And the guys who are already on the commission have it. But then after that, the new.
This is not an actual training opportunity. March 7th.
Not for the,
It's not that.
no, it's not that great.
No,
Two separate things.
no. Well, we have an annual legal training. Our town. By a lot of more. Yep, the other night, but it's a little more elaborate, talks about the needs that happen relative to the year, like, brings up some interesting
In my,
topics.
I can ask them stuff, but what we usually do is we have you guys send in the questions that you want him to cover, and then we send it to him in advance to make sure he doesn't cover all of the questions. We usually give them a little book, those are really stuff, so we can keep it in the reference.
I'm just asking, how long is it?
Be-
It'll be in
So that,
the evening?
Yep.
It'll be a regular. It's our regular, regular time. Okay. Planning meeting.
I can ask him if, you know, he's someone who does some of those trainings for all around the state. I'm not sure if it's probably, sounds like it would.
Yeah, you can say last week we got like a half an hour prayer or something like that.
Probably more than that, I mean, it takes more than half an hour. I usually don't run on.
Maybe not all of it. Right.
Right.
30. Eligible.
There is 2 online trainings on December 11th. They're about an hour each. I previously sent out an email about it. If you wanted to do it as easy as you can, avoid that email. One of them is the basic training and one of them is work.
Those are the minimum days.
They are. But I'm trying to send you as many
Oh, yeah.
opportunities that come across my email.
Hey, do you know if those are interactive?
I'm not sure. For the whole.
I was just
state.
wondering, is there a way, because I saw that there was a ability to data for the appointments times, if there was a way to. Morning. Take it out, leave it.
I can.
That would be great. Although we do have till March. There's a whole bunch of us last week in Putnam getting on. Hope we got credit for 2 hours. It's only supposed to be an hour and a half.
I think, Doug, that if we write it down, it's 2 hours. I don't think it's anybody gonna ask the question.
You don't think the state auditor is gonna be out?
Leave it to.
Leave it alone.
I am hoping to plan a regional discussion on multifamily housing that will go towards your affordable housing credit. So, I'm hoping that it'll be in the early 2020.
Now, first we finish that in this year. Great. We're covered for 4 years.
Or is it, was it if we got reelected though, now we can term? That started, because we did the land use training,
Right.
this year, 23. Will that carry us for 4 years, or
I don't know.
did that just end?
I assume it would.
I don't know.
That'll be a Rich Roberts question.
Yeah, right.
I didn't do it, so I don't think so. Or can you do that with me?
Jeff, I just wanted to ask, I noticed it's not on the agenda, whether it was oversight or if it's CEO or activity.
I think I did reach out to him to ask if there was anything like to add. I didn't get any.
Okay.
But I remember asking him. I don't want them to have to wait. So I would reach out.
For what kind of permit?
The home occupation.
Home occupation. Okay.
I'm just reading Rich's email again about. There were a lot of, numbers thrown around that. So. Training requirements, but. But yes, it appears that. Newly elected people need. Need to get some in the first year, is that how I read it?
I didn't ask them that for, how.
If you get your training, you don't have to be retrained for 4 years. But new members have a year to get their 4 hours.
Sworn in, during 2023 has a year to satisfy them. So the
But
people
also
elected,
said anyone who's in office on 1/1/23. It still requires 4 hours during the calendar year of 2023 for anyone who's in office. 2023. Is anyone who was sworn in after that, it would be here to satisfy the requirement. People elected in November, that was 2024 to get their hours. Also changes there from a requirement that people get retrained every other year, every 4 years. Planning and zoning commission, please. Show me your face. Right.
well, I had asked that question, who's recording it, keeping track?
Give the land use map.
There was a file upstairs, someone,
Oh, was it?
Dan was here, I don't know, I assume it's theirs. Everything got lost. There was a point where people could get into computer file. So I don't, but I assume it's up there. But I would, for our own good, I would keep track of your records of what you've done. There was a. Yes, that moves us on to. Then I extend citizens' comments, but I would like to, in the packet, there was this page. Inland. Wetland, or agency approval. Just so you are up to speed, so to speak, on Kane Road, the town. Are you well better versed in this, this piece of this?
I think the wetlands thing you have is really about, the subdivision, Woodstock and Associates. You guys have wanted to make sure it was
Yes.
approved, so this is what you're supposed to get before you make the decision. So in the future, I urge you to wait for that. But, so here's the proof that it was approved. And the other thing, it looks like minutes from an old meeting, actually, it's not old minutes. It's from the Wetlands Commission in August. But the starred item is about Kane Road sediment basin. They're not ready to come before the commission yet. It was originally gonna be on the agenda, and so when they are ready, they will become the basin is fully open space.
And who's coming before, the town or the town, like the highway department?
That because Payne Road is a scenic road? It's not.
No, because the basin is proposed to go on open space, and the open space has a deed saying that you need to have plenty of time approval to. Says structure, but your definition for structure includes anything above or below the ground, so a basin, I'm not sure that's. I would get that. It's not what the open space was originally intended for, I'm not saying it's a bad place to put it. And that's the option. But you're putting it in open space, that's the best.
In case anybody was wondering what that
Accidentally was included. When it's on the agenda, it will come with a whole bunch more stuff.
Citizen comments, is there are there any citizen comments? Sure.
Yeah, I was asked to make a comment about the north end of, Newtown's Airport. A lot of fill is going in there. And, some of the residents are concerned about it. It looks like it's mostly junk fill. It's not real good compacted, clean fill. It's mostly trees and stumps and garbage, everything else. I don't know whether, this commission has any authority over expansion of that airport. The airport's been there forever. It would seem to me that if he wants to expand it, that the FAA would have some control.
I don't think he's really expanding, Joe. I mean, that's kind of been a fill area for years and years. It does look like they did do some cleanup, some brush cut back, took some trees down. So now it's more open and it's more visible, whereas before there was a lot of brush growing in there and it wasn't as noticeable.
They cleaned up the south end too.
Hmm. And that may have been something with the FAA to do with, landing and takeoff or something.
Yeah.
So I know there was an accident there several months ago.
Oh, on that end?
And it was actually by the hangar. It's actually by. But I'm
There
sure
was an
that-
accident on my end years.
So I'm sure there was probably a pretty good investigation.
Okay. So that maybe the FAA required them to take down trees.
And it could be.
I know they did on mine. Cause I'm across the road from the south.
Yep.
And the FAA did require him to cut some trees down there. Just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you, Joe. I would like to clarify a comment that I made some weeks ago. Before we were talking about, you were discussing about how you have to go slow on the hill road. Reported that I mistakenly said that Doug Young did. But there was no child I was trying to think of that was not afraid to put the accelerator down.
I went to my annual physical. The doctor complained about my practice. You got behind me. And I said, look, I got a big billboard on the side of my truck. I go the speed limit. And I'm stopping every stop sign and I count to 3. Yeah, what a pain. I said, just to remember Thurston Eddie? He goes, yeah. I says, I'm better than Thurston. God, it would take half hour to get from Eastwood stop to Putnam.
Yeah.
Got behind Thurston.
Yeah.
Brings us to correspondence.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That's right. I'm still on.
Please
Comments.
state your name for the record.
Laura Curley, 58 Pulpit Rock Road and 29 Hiawatha Heights, Lake County.
Comment.
Thank you for having me. As you're preparing to talk a little bit more about short-term rentals, and I don't know if you can answer this for me or not, but because of the, I'll just talk about fungi, I think, instead of the other 2 lakes in the Lake District.
but, I wanted to know, the Lake District is made up of those three lakes because we all have deed restrictions and we're private. Is that why the town?
When the zone change was done to create the lake zoning district, the commission just chose to go with what was already recognized as the lake tax district. It doesn't have to do with your lake deed restrictions or your homeowner associations or anything like that. They just wanted to go with a previously recognized area of town. And so instead of including, say, Roseland Lake neighborhood, Pond Factory neighborhood, they just went with the lake tax district that was already in place.
Okay. All right. That's helpful. Because we have deed restrictions, or we have, you created that. Would the town ever do zoning that would apply to community versus, the lake districts? So when you're looking at short-term rentals, because it impacts the lake districts, including Bungie, for density of the number of homes that are around there, for noise. And there were other people besides that one party on Lake Bungie that has continued to have issues with a party that's doing short-term rentals. And our lake deed restrictions can help address that. But if the town includes us with their zoning, I don't think our deed restrictions can really impact that.
Good.
If I understand what you're saying correctly, zones can be different. So if the commission pursues the text amendment, it could be different, say for the community district versus the lake district. And your other point about noise is a whole different animal. I believe you have to have a noise ordinance to regulate noise, and we don't have a noise ordinance. So I believe to regulate noise, you have to go beyond what zoning might be able to do without the ordinance, which is very difficult to do. The noise ordinance is also complicated. I believe you have to have a noise meter. You have to stand 1 foot off the boundary line when the noise is permitted. Measure if it's over whatever limited time. That'd be very difficult. I'm not sure if there'd be contact available at any and all every day. The noise would be very difficult. But if the lake association choose to have stricter rules that each lake association would have to decide on themselves, they can be stricter and you have to enforce them.
Right.
So the town doesn't even get involved in what your rules are. But if your rules are not as strict as ours, we're gonna, the town should be enforcing the rules. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I'm just concerned that when I look at the districts, living in the community district, we've got acres around it, right? So for the most part. And so your community is a lot different than in the Lake District, when there are many homes that are by that wall would be, you could touch your neighbor's house just about 20 feet, but long arms. But I hope that the commission looks at, because people want to come for a vacation rental, they may not pick Pulpit Rock Road if I decided to open my doors, but they would certainly like the idea of a lake that you can canoe in and do all the things. And I think it's just going to impact at least Bungie because of the number of, 10 miles of private roads. So that's one issue. And then the lake itself, maintaining it, caring for it, and then the number of people that I have no idea. A few weeks back, there were four different cars at my neighbor's property, one from New York, one from Massachusetts, a couple from Connecticut. And living on a private lake, you'd like to be able to know it's your neighbor, or you've seen that car before. Even a long-term renter, you get to know them. They feel a little bit more responsible for the property. They have a little more respect for the neighbor. People come and go with short-term rentals, they're gone. Even if they have somebody that's close by the time that next week, that party that caused you an issue is gone. So now you get to see, okay, who's gonna come next? And what do I have to do as the owner and resident of that lake, private lake community that I have to put up with? So I just wanted to know if the town could, or this commission could say, okay, here's the set of parameters for community, and here's a set of parameters for the lakes, understanding the deed restrictions and what our community is made of, a little different. That's it. Thank you, kindly.
Thank you.
John, you using the word deed restriction, and to me, a deed restriction is the property owner
It carries with the
that
land.
carries with the land,
He
not
don't come in-
how it's used.
Right.
So the P and Z is on how the land is used.
Right.
And you're saying deed, so it's really the owner's description of what they want to do with the land. Piece of property.
Right,
So when you sell it, those deed restrictions are
carry with it.
carried with, and that's not anything zoning does.
I realize that.
Okay, all right.
But I was concerned that if zoning, because we're not responsible for zoning, right? On the lake. I mean, we still have you to tell us, like the minimum is 10 feet sidewalk. Even though ours is 8, the deed restrictions say 8, we know that 10 is minimum. We don't have businesses on the lake. So that's stricter than you allowing an Airbnb to be there. But then we're enforcing it, or we have to take them to court in a land dispute. So as an owner themselves, they should be following the deed restrictions, but they don't want to. They've ignored it. So you can write letters, you can fine them, but you're still putting up with that unless you take them to the next level legally. Including the tax district, which can take that.
Right, I was gonna say the Lake District Association is the party that would argue for that violation.
Yeah, and it's hard, when you have, most of them are volunteers, right? You have a
Yeah.
volunteer president, you have a volunteer, which has been the way for 60 years. However, now, short-term rentals, Airbnb, it's changed the character of hospitality industry, right? They don't have to follow rules. They could have a number of people, and the fire marshal can say, wow, you have three beds in that small space up there, all open. When a fire happens on the first floor, there's nothing to stop it. So, but that's not regulated. So I think there's a lot of regulations that the town should consider. And you're right, when you say there's a lot of towns that don't match us completely, but a shoreline community that's dealing with close proximity of homes that are being rented and all the issues that they have with safety and it's not regulated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
I'll just address the noise that you brought up. Delia is right, there's clearly Woodstock doesn't have a noise. Nothing really good for it. The state does have a noise ordinance. The problem is finding somebody who's gonna enforce it. The state will send somebody out to town doesn't have anybody qualified to execute the committee. And for the issues that you're talking about, which is occasionally there's, like a house party or something, you would actually have to have somebody come out during the house party to do the measure. And be able to do that, you have to be on call, so you're not gonna be able to do that. Which is the unfortunate part, that it's hard to enforce something like that, because as you said, somebody might be there for a week and have a party or two, then next week they're gone. And then it's quiet for a while, and then it happens again, so it's too random to actually, for you to schedule somebody to come out and be like, well, I know there's gonna be a party then. So that's just the unfortunate part about trying to enforce even the state regulation, but the state regulation does have limits. They have set limits that you can go out and measure. But, I mean, the only thing I can really tell you is if there's a party and it's bothering you, call through B, it's probably your best bet. You actually want some kind of enforcement while it's going.
Thank you, Eric. Anyone else? That brings us to agenda item 11. Correspondence. PA 23-173, an act concerning zoning enforcement officer certification. Also includes land use commissioner training requirements, which we discussed a little bit already. Everybody clear with that? We need to go over it again.
You start talking, you start.
Okay. Repeat, but
I just heard today about a hearing that the EPA is having on December 11th about the brownfield at Line Master. So I did make paper copies and I stapled them together and I left them on my desk. But it is available on the website and the links will be live to go to that version of the document. And then you can see whatever is available online. The hearing. There's it's an informational meeting on December 11th, a public hearing on January 10th. And so the December 11th meeting is from 7 to 8:30 at the Woodstock Middle School cafeteria, 147B, Route 159. And it's also available online, so it's a hybrid meeting. And that document on the town website where your documents for this meeting are. If you wanted to know about it or go online to read about it.
We also discussed a little bit already, the CCAPA online land use commissioner training coming up on December 11th as well. 1 to 2 o'clock, clear land use academy basic training. Legal requirements, procedures, and responsibilities, which I think some of us attended that in person last week, put on by ECOG. Thank you, Delia. And from 2 to 3, the commissioner training program addressing the nation's housing crisis. Where will our children and grandchildren live? I think that my daughter is going to live with us forever, so.
Solve.
Fall.
That brings us to agenda item 12. Sure. Move to adjourn by Steve Blue, seconded by Mark Blackburn. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Heard that. That's a fact. 8:54 PM. Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff.
Ready.